Hey Freaks, it's JJ, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I talk about rock and metal music, and I like to discuss the stories that go behind some of my favorite concept albums. So a few months ago, I did a video on the Mars Volta and talking about their album Francis the Mute. And so I had a lot of comments and suggestions from you guys wanting to know about my opinions on the bonus track, which is Francis the Mute, the title track that was actually cut from the original album, and kind of how that fits into my version of the story. So if you have not watched that video that I did a few weeks ago, months ago, I don't remember, then feel free to watch it now. Otherwise, we might be a little bit lost because my interpretation is a little bit different than, I guess, what a lot of other people have interpreted the album as. Anyway, I'll link that somewhere here. Anyway, and also, sorry if you haven't noticed, I'm not in my normal setup. I'm sorry if the sound quality is a little poor, but I am traveling at the moment, so I don't quite have everything all set up. But I really want to talk about this because I've gotten a couple of requests about it, and I am so excited that the Mars Volta are back together. If you haven't heard already, they have announced a new tour, they've released a new single, and I am stoked. My husband got me tickets to go see them as a birthday present, so really excited. This will be my first time seeing them. And yeah, let's talk about Francis the Mute and the cut song. So the first thing I had to ask myself when thinking about this song is like, where would I put it in the lineup of the other songs? I'm not really sure where the band had intended this song to be in the lineup of the other tracks, but I think I'm putting it at the end just because I feel like that's where it makes the most sense, is at the end of the album. And so for me, in my version of this interpretation, I'm putting it at the end where Vismond has just died of a massive overdose. And he kind of enters this sort of like purgatory realm where, he meets the ghost of both of his mothers. So first he meets Frances, which in my version is his adopted mother. And she explains to him finally why she kept quiet about his past. After all these years, she kept it a secret, his origins, and, why he has a birth defect and who his real mother is and all that. So she kept that secret from him, and she's kind of hoping that after, she tells this story, that he will forgive her. And so this kind of moment takes place like in within 13 seconds of silence that follows her explaining this whole story to him. So it's kind of like a bit of like a flash forward, and then we'll go on to the next couple of verses to explain the story, which is an up close version of what happened to Cassandra, his birth mother. So in the phrase, so in this first verse, we have phrases like, "It's been 13 seconds since you last said I've become the apparition you predicted for my death." And so obviously I take that to mean that he has literally died in purgatory, and it's, just been a few seconds that he's mulling over everything that she's revealed to him. Okay, in the second verse, it's where we meet Vismond's birth mother, which is Cassandra, at least in my interpretation of the album. And she explains to him that she came to regret her attempted abortion of him. And so, she kind of shows him what all transpired in the church. Like, I like to think that she did this attempted abortion very early on in her pregnancy. But then when the church, captured her and forced her to bring the child to term, she eventually came to love her child and to really regret trying to get rid of him. Like the mother instincts kicked in, and she realized that she really cared about him. She cared about and loved this unborn child so much that she wanted him to survive over her. She knew she was like dead in the end after everything she did, but she just wanted him to survive above herself. And so in this verse, we have phrases like, she said, I'll never let them hurt you. I'll never let them in. I think she's literally talking to Vismond, like her child in her stomach, and promising, vowing to protect him as, the priests and the clergy break down her door. And then, like she goes on to say, what you took from me is mine, and what is mine I'll never give. I think she's talking like to the priests and the clergy, trying to defend her child from what she knows is coming when she gives birth. Anyway, and then we have a cool lyric, which is 19 sank while 6 would swim. And I think this is kind of like indicating to us like the timeline of where everything is happening, because it's a bit of a flash forward and backward. Like the whole album, I think is like in writer terms, it would be called in media res, which is where it's not a linear story. It just kind of flashes forward and back, and the timeline is kind of all over the place. So I think this lyric is helpful in establishing like, okay, where are we in this story now? And so in the full album explanation, I talked about how the church drowned 25 nuns. And so this is indicating that, of the 25 nuns, 19 have died and 6 are still alive. And so maybe they've been taking them one by one and drowning them in the lake, or maybe it's like a whole batch at once, but basically they've been drowning them in the lake. And I think this could go back to like old-timey like tests for witches that they used to do back in the day, where it was like if you were suspected as being a witch, they would throw you into a body of water, and if you floated, you were a witch. If you sank, you were innocent, but then you would also be dead if they couldn't save you in time. So it was like a lose-lose situation. Anyway, so this is, I think, kind of similar to that in like maybe they were using witchcraft as, a way to like justify killing all these nuns that were disobedient. But basically, they threw them all in the lake, and they would only save the ones that they thought were like obeying the church and all that. And so far, Cassandra is one of the 6 surviving nuns, but she's only surviving because she's pregnant, and they want the child to be born. But otherwise she's been a very disobedient nun in the you know in this church specifically, which is all rapey and insane. Um, Anyway, then we get to verse number 3, and this flashes back and forth, I think, kind of on scenes of Cassandra's murder and her death. And so basically, they framed some guy in the community who Cassandra maybe talked to once or was maybe seeking for escape from the church. Anyway, they realized she was talking to some man, and they decided, oh, what a great scapegoat. And so they basically framed this guy for adultery, and they told everyone that he was the father of Cassandra's unborn child, which of course he was not. It was the priest. Um, but yeah, and so you have phrases like set foot inside the parlor to find her drunken by receipts. I think this just means that they caught Cassandra talking to someone, and they decided that he would be an easy target to kind of scapegoat for this nun's pregnancy. So the story goes on to explain how Cassandra was killed, basically by being gutted alive and then strung up by her feet to hang in the church for 7 days to be an example for the other nuns. Afterward, they buried her next to the man that they framed for the father of her child. And so phrases like when Cedric has that cool like distorted voice thing, when he says mingle with the carnivores, use something both in common now, I think that's just literally her being buried next to this man who was maybe her only hope for escape from the church. So then we have another kind of like timeline establishing phrase where we have 5 would grow and 1 was dead. So of the 6 remaining nuns that survived the drowning, now there are only 5 after Cassandra has died. So this kind of indicates, what's happening after her death. And I also thought it would be kind of cool, like a cool idea theory that maybe Frances, which is Vismond's adopted mother, maybe she was also a nun at this church at the same time, and she was after Cassandra's death, she was able to still steal Vismond and escape the church. I have no evidence for this lyrically. I just thought it would be a cool idea if it would to like coincide that way. I don't know. So then we get to the outro, and I think the outro just goes back to the theme of this whole song, which is whether Vismond will forgive or whether he will continue his resentment towards both of his mothers. And so I think the phrase, this never happened, but I saw you leave, is Vismond's sort of continued ignorance at his mother's love for him. He went his whole life thinking that his mother hated him, and then he even died believing that very thing. But I think with that phrase, this is Vismond still refusing to believe his mother held any love for him, and also holding on to the resentment of his adopted mother for not telling him about it. Then we have the phrase, and crawl into a bed of broken windows. And I interpret this to mean like he would rather continue to be hurt by his past than to move on. Like a bed of broken windows makes me think he would like rather lay in like shards of glass than to forgive his mothers. And then the final lyric of the song ends with "This never happened." And so I believe this is Vismond turning away from both of the ghosts and deciding to, hold on to his hatred and stay trapped in purgatory forever because he just can't forgive. And so yeah, tragic ending, but I think it's fitting for his character. So that is my little interpretation of Francis the Mute to the bonus track. Um, yeah, let me know what you guys think of it. Down in the comments, make sure you put all of your ideas of what you think this track would be or how it fits into the rest of the album. Because it's a little bit, it wasn't easy to make it fit into this concept. So I'm not sure what the band originally had for it, but this is my version. Also, if you want to join my metalhead community, I have some exciting projects coming out right now. The next one will probably be before or after I post this video, I'm not sure. But yes, join my metalhead community. Leave me videos you want me to do and get access to bonus content. I don't know, I'm doing finger guns. Thanks for watching, freaks. If you are going to the Mars Volta's tour or you're just excited that they're back together, leave that down in the comments and we can be excited together. Anyway, thanks for watching. Till next time.